I haven't actually written any novel as such. Where Emma has as co-writing this book because the idea for it, I suppose, is mine, and I'm the one that comes up with the crazy characters and a lot of the suggestions for what they're going to do and the world that they live in and all that sort of thing. Emma is the seasoned writer.
You're the guy who reads every single thing that she writes, right?
I should do as a father.
Yeah.
Well, actually, no.
You're saying you don't?
No, I actually don't. I've only actually read one of the books that Emma's written, and the reason for that is because, as a father, if she asked me what I thought, I would be very honest. And I think some of the books that Emma writes are not really my thing. I am sure they're very good because they sell very well, but it has to be something, obviously, that's my thing for me to read it and to say truly whether I appreciate it or not. So no, Finn was the one that I dived into and absolutely loved.
Well, hey, Emma, what are you guys writing now? What's the book called that you guys are co-authoring together that's coming out, would you say, in May or June?
It's June. It's June the 28th, all being well. And it's called Bluetooth and the World Wide Web. And it's about a young spider called Simon, who is nicknamed Bluetooth because he has a blue fang, whereas all his friends have regular fangs. So he gets picked on and bullied at school and by people that live in the community. And one day he discovers that his blue fang can magically connect to the World Wide Web, the internet, which spiders actually use as a physical web. So they send messages along silk threads that connect one PC or one laptop to another. But Simon doesn't have to do that. He can just use his fang and it starts to glow and connects to the internet. So the story is that he decides one day that he's gonna hide the fact that he has this blue fang. He goes to the dentist and the dentist puts a cap on it and hides it. And actually Simon needs to be proud of the Bluetooth and needs to flash the Bluetooth off to all his friends because it actually is the savior of the internet in the end. So that's sort of it in a nutshell, I guess.
And how much are you writing in comparison to what your father's helping you with? I mean, what's going on with the co-authoring? Because I've never done that before. I've thought about it, joining up with somebody and saying, here, let's work on this together. It's just so hard to do. Teamwork and all that.
Well, to be honest, I've never written anything with anybody before. But he kind of...
That's not true. You've actually been in that classroom writing stuff with those kids for what now? Years now.
Yeah, I guess. Not a novel though. Not something where anybody else except for my name is on the front of the book. I guess. Other than the schoolwork, like not an individual person. So I've never worked.
What's the word count going to be when you're done?
Oh, we're not sure. I think it's about 15,000. It's not very long.
15,000, but it's YA, right? Or middle grade?
It's middle grade. Middle grade.
Middle grade, okay.
Yeah. So we just decided that we should write the children's book, and my dad gave me the ideas. He built the world, he created the characters, and came up with the storyline, and said, "This is something that I think you really need to write." So I went away and had to think about it, and went back to him and said, "Well, that's fine, but the world and the characters are actually yours. So really, we should both be getting credit for this. I'm happy to write it." And then I write the initial draft, send it back to him. He goes through it, tells me what he thinks, adds some changes in, sends it back to me, and I do another draft and so on. And that's how we've been doing it, really.
That's fantastic. You are retired now, right, David, or are you still working for the police force?
I'm retired. I've been retired for 6 years, although I do volunteer as of last week at a local police museum in Bradford. But I am actually retired as such.
Okay. Where did you come up with the idea that you guys are working on?
To be honest, I just woke up with it. It happens that way. I suppose I tend to perhaps dream a lot. I don't know. I wake up with things in my head. And we'd already sort of talked about the potential for Emma to be writing a children's book. And I tend to think in cartoon world. I suppose it's the child in me. So it just popped into my head that no one really has made the connection between the World Wide Web, as far as I'm aware, and spiders. Already having a World Wide Web, and it sort of went from there. I had a conversation with Emma. She
Bluetooth is ingenious. I think that's really nice.
I sort of then thought, well, what fits with spiders, what fits with insects, what things can you use to cross over, i.e. Bluetooth if it's got a Bluetooth. Just stuff like that, really. And I just came up with. I started off with a book and just wrote down the bits of ideas, the quirky names, and we sat down together and sort of came up with a way it would all stitch together into a story.
Well, you're a big reader anyway, aren't you? Always reading. I can't remember if that's something we talked about or not. You have come up in our conversations. I think I've had Emma on 6 times in the last 2 years, something like that. So I've gotten to know. Yeah, it's been a lot of times. I've gotten to know a little bit about her history, but I think you're a reader, right? Something along those lines.
Are you referring to me there?
Yeah.
No.
No.
Genuinely, I'm not. If you was to put a law book in front of me, yes, I would sit and read it. If you were to put, a workshop manual for a Ford Escort in front of me, I would gladly read it.
Interesting.
When it comes to fiction, I have read very little fiction. Certain things I have, but we're talking maybe one book a year. If you talk,
what did you do on the force? Did you just serve as a patrol officer? How does it work exactly? Do you get in cars and stuff in England, or are you on foot?
Well, I started out as everyone does in the UK as a foot officer, some 26 years ago now, and then progressed into being a divisional crime car, so driving, then to be a tutor constable, training other people, then into traffic, what I suppose you would call a highways officer, then into a more specialised traffic unit. And then I picked up an injury on duty and went into the control room, taking 3 9s calls and dispatching before I ended up retiring.
Is that tough for somebody to go from the excitement of traffic? I mean, because you're always pulling people over, not knowing what to expect, right? I mean, basically every moment's kind of like almost a fight, adrenaline-wise.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Right? Yeah.
And you go from that to sitting in this control room, it's got to make your mind just go crazy, right? You're not doing anything anymore.
No, not really, because it's a very, very fast pace that goes on in there, especially when you're taking emergency calls. It's just like, as you described, you stop a car, you don't know what's going to happen. But when you pick up the phone, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what's on the other end of the phone. It could be someone just reporting a simple, basic crime. It could be somebody who's in the process of being murdered. It could be anything. And when you get into police pursuits, it is just as scary and just as exhilarating, and to be controlling that on the radio as it is to be driving the car at the time. The adrenaline is still there.
Some operators from 9/11 say that the terror of that day will live with them for the rest of their lives.
Oh yeah.
So then you dig a little bit deeper, and it's not just them. It's like all these 9/11 operators have to kind of experience these moments with the people that call in. That's impressive.
Yes, yeah. I mean, you do exactly. You share the moment. There's no doubt about it. You share all the emotions that go along, and quite often once you finish on that particular call or that particular pursuit, you need to disconnect and go and take some time out just to gather your thoughts a little bit before you can come back and start all over again.
I mean, Emma definitely gives you credit for this world building. I mean, you come from a specific hardcore world, right? How are you able to go from there to kind of creating the fantasy landscapes that she gives you credit for?
I think, bearing in mind the job that I've done, you see all sorts. You deal with all sorts. You deal not only with tragedy but with a lot of comedy. And as a police officer, most police officers, when you speak to them, will tell you that you get through things, but by having a sense of humour. Awful things that you deal with, but having sometimes quite a macabre sense of humour. But that's the way you get through it. So I think police officers have a little bit of a different take on life, and I suppose that's the way I've approached this, and I've applied what I know to this fantasy that I woke up with in my head. And when the book comes out and you read the book, you'll maybe appreciate that there are some references in there to police work.
Well, yeah, have to, right? Because I mean, if you have somebody kind of patrolling the World Wide Web physically or whatnot,
yeah,
they're going to be looking for bad things, right? They're going to be repairing mistakes and things of that nature. It's going to be, yeah. You have to have the
but also the funny things that you see within police forces, the funny characters that you come across, the funny characters that you work with, the funny situations that you find yourself in, some of the serious situations that you find other people in, and that's not necessarily something that's serious enough to affect me, but something as simple as a child being bullied at school. That's a major thing to them. So that is sort of built into this story to a certain extent. I suppose all writers draw on what they know.
That's not true. I spent my entire time in a dark basement. If I wrote stories just based on what I knew, they'd be quite boring. Emma, let me ask you, what was it like growing up with a dad that was a cop?
Exciting, I guess. Some of the funny stories that he'd come home with. Worrying at times as well, because it's a dangerous job and it were a busy job and it required working night shifts and dealing with, when I was young, dealing with scary criminals. So yeah, a bit of both really, a bit of excitement and a bit of concern.
Concern.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I don't know why I always mess this up. You don't live in Manchester.
No. We live in Bradford in West
Bradford,
Yorkshire.
Okay.
Yeah.
For some reason, every time I think of you, I think of Manchester, but I guess not.
Well, we don't live far from Manchester. It's about an hour's drive away.
Oh, it is. Oh, isn't everything in England like an hour's drive away from itself?
Just about.
Yeah, where we are. We're pretty central. If you look at a map and stick a pin right in the middle, that's roughly where we are.
So, I mean, you come from a cop family and you write speculative fiction with that kind of flavor in every single word that you put on page, or what else adds into that, Emma?
What else adds into the reason why
I
write speculative fiction? Is that what you mean?
I think so.
Right.
Because you're writing imagination, right? You're writing imaginative stuff. You're pulling things out of nowhere. And yet your family's kind of hard-nosed into the cracks of your town. You know the crap that goes down every single day. I mean, people want to put up their, close their curtains or whatnot. You're aware of it. But yet you don't write about that world. You write about something else, something made up.
I think I write about the worlds that I would find exciting and interesting to live in. So I write speculative fiction, futuristic planets, strange and wonderful creatures and all that sort of stuff, because it's different from what we live in. It's not the norm. It's not the boring expected life that we get so used to. So I think as well, I'm a real avid reader. I love watching movies and TV shows and programs and things like that all explore sort of futuristic things, science fiction, fantasy, and I love anything like that. So I guess I'm kind of just inspired by what I enjoy, and I feed that in.
And your dad kind of adds a realism to it.
Yeah, particularly with this book as well. Although I would argue that he adds more of the comical side of things on this occasion. It's got quite a lot of toilet humor in it for kids.
That's interesting, because he was just saying, David, you were just saying how you have to come up with humor, don't you, to make it through it? You have to laugh.
Yeah, absolutely, you do. Yeah, you see, you wouldn't survive as a police officer without a somewhat weird sense of humor, I don't think.
And not surviving as a police officer is scary for everybody, isn't it? And that's not a fun place to be. No. You're not surviving as a police officer. And it's scary. So So what are you going to do with the comedy now? Are you going to go and do some stand-up or something along those lines? Or do you feel it? Do you feel bursting out of you? I mean, it's been 6 years. You're volunteering, but do you still feel that you're missing the camaraderie?
Yes, absolutely. Well, yes, I do. I mean, a good example of that is, as I explained a short time ago, I have just started working at the Bradford Police Museum as a tour guide. So yes, I still have that affinity with the job, and I still have contact with people who do the job. If you're asking me if I would want to do the job now, the answer is no. Well, that's probably because I'm too old for it anyway.
Yeah.
So
I know,
yeah,
right? You feel it in your body, the things that you used to be able to do when you were younger, right?
yeah,
You know that you can't do it anymore. Even sitting in a car for 8 hours is arduous.
yes,
Getting out of it
yeah.
4 or 5 times an hour.
After 6 years, I've got very used to being retired.
Yeah, why back out of that? I mean, do you, obviously it flavors everything. You've got this book that you're writing right now that's completely fantasy oriented for children, right? That's very fantastic. What's next though? It comes out in 3 months. Are you in the editing process?
Was that aimed at me? Sorry.
Could be both of you guys. I don't know how the editing works for you. For
Um,
me, I have to, throw at my wife like 4 or 5 times and finally gets enough red marks on it. I think it's gonna be good enough to send out. How does this work for you now? Working on a team. Who decides it's done?
Well, the story itself, I think we've both kind of decided it's done. We don't need to do any more rewriting. We're happy with the way it is. With me being a trained copy editor, I am just putting my knowledge to good use, doing quite a few rounds of edits. I send them then to my dad, who has a read through and sort of says, yep, that change is good, or however, we might need to just work on this, or I noticed this. And we've been handing it out to quite a few beta readers, some adults, some kids as well.
You are the imaginative brain trust, right, David? Now you have this horrible process, and I know it's horrible because I do not like to edit. And I edit from the very beginning. I start a story until I send it away. It's the worst part of writing. How do you feel about this? Going over and over and over again, these words and making them better every time.
I am a bit of a perfectionist. There's sort of never been room for any error in any of the paperwork I've done for 26 years. So I am when it comes to paperwork, a perfectionist. I'm not a writer by any means, but I do like. I have a vision of where where my contribution, my part of the story, my vision of what is supposed to happen goes, and that's the bit I look for when I'm reading through it. And recently, when we're looking at having it illustrated as well, it's important to me that what's on the paper, both written and in an illustration, reflects actually what I have in my head.
Is he a taskmaster, Emma? Is he hard to work with? Is he too much of a perfectionist?
No, not at all. I was actually pleasantly surprised with how easy having a co-author is. I know he's my dad, so it's probably different to working with somebody that another professional writer.
I couldn't work with my mom. I could not do it. If she said, Josh, let's write a novel together, I'd be like, I don't write anymore.
It's always, my mum and dad have always been really supportive of my writing anyway. Yeah. So it's not something that they're unfamiliar with and not something that they're not cheering on constantly anyway. So to bring him in and introduce him to what it's like to be an author rather than just somebody like a supporter was interesting for me, because I wasn't sure whether A, he'd want to do it, and B, whether he would embrace it and want to continue. But we've now got a series planned, hopefully at least a trilogy, with other Bluetooth related stories, and it's been a really fun experience, particularly for me, because since writing Noah, I've not written much brand new material. I've not written anything sort of fresh. I keep getting stuck. I think I had a bit of writer's block maybe. And introducing this new idea and working with somebody else to bounce those ideas off actually helped to get me out of that slump. It got me going again, it sort of oiled the cogs in my brain, and got me back into writing. So it's been hugely beneficial. And other than kind of disagreeing on the illustrations, which, to be honest, wasn't even a disagreement really, Dad, was it? Because they were both brilliant. It was just a matter of choosing which ones best reflected the characters. And he sort of said, well, I prefer these, but I'll leave it with you. And that was a bit of a, oh my goodness, kind of moment for me, because I didn't like that responsibility. But I guess it's because I'm so used to working alone, and I'm so used to being the main person that controls everything about my work, independent, that having a
you don't have any though, do you? You don't have somebody that reads your stuff after you're done.
Yes.
That you don't have somebody like that, do you?
My partner's not a big reader. My mum likes to read, and my dad read Noah, and I have sort of friends and colleagues that like to read my work as well. But I am effectively 100% independent. I do all my own editing, formatting, cover design, literally start to finish. So to have somebody to bounce ideas off and make decisions with was both a good and a terrifying thing for me, because I was releasing that control to some extent. But in a good way as well, because it's definitely helped, particularly with this book, to make it better.
You never had to ask anybody's opinion, did you, on the police force or while you were doing paperwork? You never handed something off to like a buddy and said, hey, yo, take a look at what I just wrote and tell me if I need to do any editing before I turn it into the captain. You just did it, right? It was perfect when you were done.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be perfect. It's going before a judge.
But you don't have anybody else check over it, do you? You're 100% on your own as well.
Yeah, once submitted, it would go past the solicitor, a lawyer, for the prosecution. But no, I mean, when you submit something, you think it's perfect, but often you'll get to court and someone will find a very large hole in what you've written, which is what what defences look for. So,
well, how has this back and forth been for you?
It's been fine. No, it's been absolutely fine, because we have genuinely bounced off each other. I've put a somewhat cynical Bobby's view on it, with a bit of toilet humour thrown in. And Emma's put a young, fresh, recent experience of school and what goes on, sort of from the year 2000 onwards at school. My school days ended in 1979, and it was, the problems were the same, but the surroundings were very different. So, bearing in mind, this is the story is effectively, if you take out the insects, it's a child going through school, and dealing with what goes on there, with other things mixed in, of course. So, yeah, I think we've bounced off each other. When Emma's added something in, I've sometimes then spotted an opportunity for a bit more humour to go in. Again, thinking my head works like a cartoon. I think very, very much Tom and Jerry, and that's how I envisage it, and that's how it sort of builds in my head. We've also drawn on characters that we know. There are a lot of family members in the book.
Do they know?
Yes.
Sorry,
they know.
What was that, Emma?
I was just going to say, with their knowledge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Just snuck it in there.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, obviously, it's like I say, I find it easy to write about things that I know about, and I think people do to a certain extent. And, the people that I know about, no doubt people that I've come into contact with throughout the years in the job I did as well. It's that experience of meeting people and dealing with people helps you build characters, I think.
It really does. It really does. I've worked a lot of public-facing jobs. I hate people with a passion, but I can deal with them and get them to do things I want them to do because I've been interacting with them for decades.
Yeah.
So it's not, you could mess it up, and when you know you're messing it up, you're like making a decision. Okay, I'm going to burn this bridge, but you're at least doing it.
Yeah.
What was the most surprising thing about the collaboration?
Is that
Emma, tell me. If you have an answer, what was the most surprising thing about this collaboration for you?
The most surprising thing. Well, I wouldn't say it was surprising, but it was working out what we could and couldn't use, I guess. It was the funniest thing, that the kind of, we hit a bit of a wall when my dad had his original ideas, and we wanted to use certain names and certain references, and we wrote the first draft, and we kind of sat down, and from a professional point of view and an editing point of view, I sort of thought we can't do that, because these people exist in the real world and we'll end up getting sued. So we had to then think, oh damn, all these wonderful things and these amazing references and play on names and stuff that we wanted to put in, we couldn't put it in. So I think the most surprising thing was how well we managed to rewrite the material and still make it as great and as funny as it originally was. It's a shame that we can't use some of the references that we wanted to use, but we've got round it really well, and it was much easier and much smoother than I ever expected it would be.
It's interesting. So it made it more creative.
Yeah.
Getting around it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of, well, can we use this name? And, we could say this, and I'd sort of hum and say, well, we might get away with it, but what would you think of this? And it was more of a, like my dad said, bouncing ideas off each other until we got at a place where we were both happy with it. And it was equally as good as it was in the original, but just more acceptable with the public in mind. So it was actually a lot easier than I thought it would be to get around those obstacles.
What about for you, David?
Yeah, it was a learning process. I tend to commit to paper and exactly what I'm thinking in my head, and that's not necessarily something that you can commit to paper for the public. So I actually quite enjoyed the challenge of Emma saying, "I don't think so. You can't do that."
Not in those words.
Because
every writer has that in their brain. It's just awesome that she's your daughter. You know what I mean?
Yeah. As a parent, it's normally me that says that. I'm the one that's used to saying, "I don't think you can do that, love."
As the father, yeah.
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 The good thing about that is it was a challenge, and it was fun working the problem. And as Emma's already said, I think we worked the problem really well between us to achieve what I'd come out with that was not, a lot of it wasn't appropriate to publish, but I knew that as I was writing a lot of it, or making the notes for it. But it's adapting that, isn't it? I think the best thing to do is put down first of all the way you're thinking it, and then adapt it for other people to read, and that's what we've done.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, it's been interesting.
That's how I would say writing is.
We've kind
get
of
it down and then edit
as well. Would you agree, Dad? My dad's been obviously my parent my whole life. He brought me up. He taught me right from wrong, what we can and can't do, and guided me through life. And now I kind of feel like we swapped roles, and I'm guiding him through what you can and can't do with publishing and what's acceptable and the process. Yes. It's quite funny, actually.
Yeah, I bow to Emma. She's the expert here, so she's actually the talented one. It's certainly not me. So yeah, what she says goes at the end of the day.
Right. One of the reasons I keep returning back to Emma to have her on the show is that she is a wealth of knowledge. She doesn't probably realize all the stuff she drops that I pick up and just run away with, thinking, I got her this time. It's really, she's really smart with this publishing stuff. She's put her nose to the grindstone basically, and learned a lot of stuff. And I wanted to ask, has this process, Emma, made you write again? Are you starting to produce new content, or are you just focusing on this novel? Is there more? Are you out of the woods, so to speak, with the writer's block?
Yes, because of the new book. I'm at the moment focusing solely on writing the Bluetooth material, because with the full-time job and my editing and formatting business, I've got a couple of clients at the moment as well that I'm helping. So I just wouldn't have time to do anything else, I think, without stretching myself too thin. But there is, like I said, going to be a sequel. We've kind of already planned out the story. It's just a matter of starting to get it on paper. So that's my challenge for the next couple of months until the new book comes out, is to start drafting the sequel. And I'm already excited to do it. We already know where we're going with it. It's just a matter of finding the time to sit down and type some stuff up. So yes, I'm definitely out of my slump.
Are you fantastic? Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now the art. Who's doing the art? Who's drawing the actual art?
Okay. Well, it's a long story and it's been quite stressful, but we initially found a very talented artist through an event that my dad and I did. And she was a young student, but unfortunately she recently informed us that she wasn't able to continue and she had to drop out, unfortunately. So we had a bit of a mad rush to find somebody talented and somebody that could meet the deadline and effectively meet the same quote and the same arrangements and agreements we had with the other girl. So we put out a couple of emails, a couple of messages, 2 or 3 different ones, and then got them to do some rough sketches and decided on. In fact, it was only really Saturday night that we informed this lady that we wanted to work with her and started the ball rolling. And her name is Christine Martin. She's a West Yorkshire-based artist, and she's very talented. And I'm sure my dad will tell you because he was the one that really, really, really loved the images. She's perfected the characters wonderfully. They really do reflect the funny little quirks that they have and the personalities that they have. So we're actually thrilled that it's gone the way it's gone.
Fantastic. What kind of style is it? I mean, does it match what the previous artist was doing, or are you going in a totally new way?
I don't know much about art and styles and what you call things and the name of different ways of doing it, but they're very cartoon-like. And they're wacky and they're fun. And well, you'll see, I'm sure, over the next couple of weeks when we start releasing the images.
What was a bully like? Is it a book on underwear or something like that? The bully and the underwear. It's like real popular. You know what I'm talking about. They just made a movie about it.
I don't know.
Middle grade too. I don't know.
I have no idea.
I have that style in my head right now. It's very, very nice. Are you looking at something and kind of sensing a product that's already out in the world, or are you trying to be original from bottom up?
I think, and I'm sure my dad will agree with me, that her drawings are very unique. They're very original. I certainly haven't seen anything similar to that browsing the children's books, which I've been doing a lot recently to try and get a feel for what's acceptable and what's expected. But I actually think that this girl has something really unique and really different. So we're excited to see the finished product. We've already seen what the sketches are going to look like. We know the majority of them. They're brilliant, they're spot on. It's just then a matter of getting the real things going. And I'm sure when they're released, you'll see exactly what I mean. They are so fun and so quirky, and they're full of personality. And I don't think we could have got them any better, to be honest. They're brilliant.
So that was so disappointing with the original artist. I am very fearful of that, building something with somebody. I mean, that would be the collaboration that I would look for. I would want my writing to go with somebody's art, and I want to push it together and make some kind of graphic novel or something along those lines. But people are flighty, right? And you reached out to somebody third party and asked them to help you with your project, and they dropped the ball. What a nightmare.
It was a bit of it was a bit of a panic for me because, like I said earlier, I'm not used to working with people. So I keep control of most things. And when I lose control of things, I panic a little bit. And that's all it was. It was just a brief moment of, oh my goodness, now we've got to find a replacement. But I mean, it wasn't done on purpose. It was very sort of accidental, very parted on very good terms, completely understood why. She's a student and she had, a lot of work and things to do. So we are going to stay in touch, and hopefully in the future maybe we can work together again. But it just went the way it went. It's unfortunate, but it's not the end of the world, and we've found a solution and we dealt with it, and we dealt with it well. So I'm quite proud of the way that we resolved it, considering this is the first ever time we've worked with an illustrator or anybody external, really. And it turned out well. So I'm quite pleased that I think if it was to happen again in future, we would know what to do and we would be able to handle it.
Well, what would you do differently in the future?
If it happened again, do you mean?
No, just period. I mean, you're starting this project from day one again. You're doing the sequel. I mean, yeah. I mean, what would you do differently if you had to start over?
I think I would have locked in an illustrator earlier, because I think we went to the fact that we wanted an illustrator a little bit late anyway. We were writing the book and we kind of just decided it needed to be illustrated, but I think we needed to know that from the very beginning that that's what we imagined. So I would definitely perhaps lock an illustrator in even before the process of writing. And then that would be something less to worry about. And I don't know really, because we've not actually got to the publishing part, so we've not got anything really that I can tell you we would do differently until it's all been done and the book's out and we're doing signings and things. I probably can't answer that question yet.
How do middle grade indies sell? Are they good on Amazon? Are you marketing to the grown-ups? I mean, how is this?
In all honesty, I am marketing to families. I think it's when we agreed to write together, we thought it would be good to go at it from a father and daughter team writing for fathers reading to their daughters, or mothers
Fathers reading to their daughters. That's so awesome.
So it's written by
exactly
a family
what you want.
for families. At bedtime, trying to encourage families to spend more time together, reading and enjoying fun stories rather than just sitting in front of the TV or scrolling on iPads and iPhones. We want to get families back together and get them reading. So that's who we're marketing to. And the majority of the marketing plans we've put in place are all aimed at book signings. So it's about selling physically in person rather than just online. Because I think, especially when people can meet you and shake your hand and chat with you and see all the fun things you've got planned for marketing, and we have absolutely tons of fun things planned for marketing, for our events especially. I think.
Well, David, you've done this before. David, you've done this before, haven't you? You've been involved in marketing in the past.
Well, prior to doing the last job that I did, I left school and worked in retail in a store. I was sort of working my way through management there. So I have got a little bit of a marketing and sort of promotional background, I suppose.
Well, you've been going to these events. You've been going to these events for a while now, selling books and whatnot.
Yes. Yeah. I'm the one that goes out and drags people from the shop window into the store to meet the author to buy the book.
The tough job, the barker. You're the barker.
Yeah.
It's important, though, isn't it?
I suppose that's been my my role so far. It's going to be a bit strange, to be honest, going to the ones for the book and being sat at a table and actually not being out there grabbing people from the shop window or out on the shopping mall, floors, and it's going to feel a bit strange.
Do you
but
just
I enjoy talking to
them?
people, so that's just
in the moment that it needs to get done. That's the only time I enjoy talking to anybody. I'm just shut down after this.
I think Emma was spot on, and we did have the conversation about where the book was aimed, and I think in addition to that, we had this thing about a change of illustrator, and the new images I think will appeal not only to the young person that reads the book, but also to the parent, carer, grandma, granddad, whoever it is that's reading the book to the child, because the story has some adult humour hidden in it, rather like Disney do quite well with things like Pixar and Toy Story, and there's always a bit of grown-up humour in there. But the images are also, I think, will appeal to very young people, but I think they'll also appeal to people right up to and further past my age, because they have got so much character in them, that you can't fail to like them. So I think we struck. I think it was a traumatic situation losing the original illustrator, but to be honest, I think we've landed on his feet.
Had you guys considered doing the art yourself at all? Because that's usually what I bounce between. I just go ahead and do it myself, see what I can do.
I'm not a good enough artist to produce what I'm looking at here as that our new illustrator can do. I can draw a simple spider as a cartoon, but that's not where. I don't think that's where we envisaged the images would be. Where
Consistency, right? I mean, you just
yeah,
need consistent art.
but also the target age for the book. I think anything I drew would be too young.
Too young.
Too young, yeah. It would be more. It would be very, very simple cartoon. Like what we have here is I don't. We have like a cross between the Beano comic book and Wacky Races. I think is the best. If you can imagine merging those two together, I think that's where we've hit it. And both appeal to me as an adult, and both cartoons I think still appeal to kids, or the idea of the cartoon does. So yeah, I think what we have is, and as Emma's already said, there's nothing out there like it, which is also important.
Yeah, well, I mean, you want to find an audience, right? An umbrella.
Yeah,
I guess. Excuse me. So, I mean, I just coughed and my entire brain emptied out of my head too. I have no clue what my next thought was going to be. So it was for you, Emma. I was going to ask you the question. Is there any way that you pulled it from my brain before I lost it?
I have many talents, but mind reading isn't
That's
one of
not
them,
one of
Bryan.
You know what I wanted to ask you, David? Has this motivated you to potentially write about your world, the police world of, I don't know, is it Central England?
No.
No. You got the best name in the entire world for a cop, though. David Hardcastle.
Yes, but it's something that so many cops, bobbies, whatever you want to call them, have done and still do when they leave the job. And I think the market is full of people who, I'm not saying don't have an interesting book to write, because they do. You know, as I say, you come across some very strange, very entertaining, very macabre things.
Yeah.
So there's plenty there for a book. I just don't see myself drawing on the sort of things I would put in that book. I would feel like I was betraying the people that I've served. That sounds really corny, doesn't it?
Let me ask you then. Maybe this would ask you to betray them, but I'm curious what your current attitude about the police force is. Or is it a positive one, or do you think they're going in the wrong direction in terms of they're being able to interact with people in a positive way and create positive interactions instead of negative ones?
I think the police officers that we have in the UK do the very best with what they've got. What they've got isn't enough. That's the bottom line. There are 22,500 less police officers in the United Kingdom now than there were when I retired. That is the equivalent of three forces, three county forces. That's the equivalent of. So law and order in the UK is feeling the pinch. That thin blue line is very, very, very thin indeed at the moment.
What about the United States? Do you know how our police force looks in comparison to yours? Is that a dumb question? Kind of felt dumb asking it, but I'll let it linger for a minute and see what happens.
No. It's a valid question. Obviously, you have an awful lot more firearms out there than we have, either in circulation in the UK with the bad people or in circulation with the police officers. There are more than there used to be. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think the statistic is we have enough to put a gun in every single hand of person in this country, including infants. Everybody alive, we can give them a gun. That's what our situation is right now.
Yeah, that's scary.
It's scary.
Yeah.
Because bullets go through walls.
I always said that I would never want to carry a firearm.
I was in the Army. I carried one. I never want to do it again.
No,
it's the most deadly thing I ever had in my hands. I don't want it. No way.
I would never want to carry a firearm. As a police officer, I would have never wanted to carry a firearm because it changes very much how you police. My style of policing is up close and personal and friendly, and until it had to change.
until I had the
based
change.
on the circumstances. Unfortunately, if you've got a firearm by your side, you can't get up close and personal because the first thing we'll try and take is your firearm. So
you can. That's a good point.
It changes
no
very much.
But
I mean, there is a very different way of policing in the United States. The police officers that I've come into contact with while I've been over there have all been really friendly, but you can't get close. You can't get close and personal with them. They always want to keep the distance, and I fully appreciate why. But in the United Kingdom, we get up close and personal. We get on a personal level with people, unless we happen to be a firearms officer, in which case the style of policing changes, and that's not.
I feel like we're stuck, though. I feel like there's nothing you can do in this country about those guns. I just don't feel like there's anything that we can do. It's like if you talk about it, they have to have them. They want to go to war to keep them. It's like it's not a conversation we can have.
The country's grown up with it, hasn't it? So we haven't. So
yeah.
Oh, we have, but it's been legislated against over, a few hundred years and filtered out.
That's been the history, though, right? Because I mean, in Scotland, they took swords away. You can't have swords. You can't have any kind of martial weapons at all. Because you might rebel against us, and we don't want that. Or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, these days you can, but you can't walk about with them. That's for sure.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's different.
I mean, a collection of swords on your wall's a whole different thing.
Nobody's taking over England with a sword anymore. It's going to be a gun, and that is fortunately not a question you guys have to really bother with. I mean, that to me is interesting because you have an opportunity to explore the world on a very intimate level, and I think this story kind of does that. The internet's invasive. You can't get rid of it. It's everywhere. How do you police it? How do you make our children safe? My kids are 4. They're going to be 4 in April, and I'm just constantly worried about what they're going to find. How do I stop them from finding it? But I guess there's no stopping it, is there? And I think that's what this story in my mind that you wrote is about. That.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, it's everywhere you go, there's danger around the corner, isn't there? But you can't wrap your kids in cotton wool.
Why not?
They have to experience life. They have to.
No, they don't. They don't have to. They don't have to experience anything. They're okay. I could tell them without ever. I'm a writer. I can tell them all the experiences they could have had if I let them out into the world. It's
well,
really
the other aspect is if you let them out in the world, they might actually come back with something that you can use for a book.
That's true. An opinion. Tool.
Yeah. Kids have got to be allowed to explore. They've got to be allowed to make mistakes. They've got to be allowed to sort of go through the full spectrum of emotions. As a parent, you've just got to try and guide them and protect them as best you can. But at the end of the day,
Emma is your only child, or do you have other children?
No, Emma's our only child. Yeah,
only child. So I mean, I don't know, Emma. How does it feel to be somebody's only child?
Fab.
It does feel fab.
Yeah, why not?
You don't feel smothered by all the love.
No, I don't feel smothered by all the love. I don't know. I feel very lucky. I was born into a wonderful family, and I feel like the way that it happened, it was supposed to happen. And I'm grateful that I was an only child because I got the extra attention from the parents that I perhaps needed, and all the love, and it was brilliant. I loved it.
My wife was an only child, and she tells me she has no clue how to interact with me because she was given everything and she didn't have to share.
Well, it's not. I think it's not. A lot of people see only children as sort of selfish, have everything, nobody ever says no, and that's not the case at all. Or at least I'd hope it's not. From like Dad, maybe you can chime in. I hope that's not what people would say. I think I was lucky to be on my own, not to have to share toys and things when I was younger. But at some point, I guess every only child wonders if they would want a sibling or not, because they'll see other siblings arguing and having their relationships with other brothers and sisters. And I had friends that had brothers and sisters, and when they were away, they had, on holidays, they had somebody to play with on holiday, or somebody to
blame something on.
Yeah,
like a spell in the car on. I mean, that's basically it.
But I didn't have to worry about arguing with the sibling or being blamed for something that I didn't do. So, compared to some of my friends.
Or blame somebody else. That's the best part.
Yeah,
You and your brother
well,
sitting in the back seat. It's his fault. He's
well, yeah.
sleeping. He can't
I
defend
wouldn't
himself.
have to worry about any of that.
So would you do this again? I mean, this has been a very interesting project for you. You've managed a team of 2 people, right? I mean, you have your artist and you have your collaborator, and you're about to finish that project. It's very interesting.
Well, it's not the end because we've got a sequel and a prequel planned. So it will continue for at least the next probably 12 months. Another 2 book releases, I'd say another 12 months. And then after that, we'll see, because we've had other ideas for other books, and I've had ideas for books, and who's to say what's going to come in the future. So it's definitely not the end of the collaboration. It's just the end of this particular project, moving on to another one.
I want to run something past you that I heard just recently, and I want to see what your opinion of it is.
Okay.
This woman, Jennifer Rainey, actually is her name. She wrote a book that I can't find right now, but her name is Jennifer Rainey, and she says that the best thing to do on Amazon is kind of throw a bunch of stuff on there at one time. You have a novel, collection, some art, blah, 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 blah. It makes a bigger splash and you show up on more searches. That's according to what she said. What do you think?
I disagree, because I think
Why?
each project needs its own special attention to detail. I think if it's all well and good, it's different if you release a series. So, for example, if I released all 4 of my Pandora books at once, that's different because I'm promoting the same series, the same characters, the same world. But if
So if you have the same world, say, like you have Pandora, you're right, like Pandora 1, but then you also have the art of Pandora, just a collection of stuff that you made goes along with it or something. You release that at the same time or a couple weeks later, or maybe a bunch of short stories or whatnot a month or so after that. It just keeps pushing your name on that search list, right? But all the stuff is interrelated.
The
like
more books you have available, the better it is, because if a reader finds you and enjoys your work, they're going to go on and they're going to want to find more. And if there's no more books up there, then they're going to find another author to read. And by the time your next book comes out, they've forgotten all about you. So it does help to have more than one title. But I disagree with throwing up random books that have no connection to one another.
Random, no good. You have to, in this world, you really have to aim. You have to aim, and you have to have flavor components that match.
In the traditional publishing world, it's 1 a year, isn't it, from each author? Like Stephen King, maybe more for Stephen King with him being such a big name, but ordinarily a debut author would have 1 book. Because it takes so long in the traditional industry to produce a book and get it up there.
Didn't we do him together? We talked about him and how he fought against his publishers to do more than that.
The
Richard Bachman story.
We did,
and I just Garrett Robinson, we both talked to him, and he said the more you can put out on a yearly basis, the better off you're going to be. To the point where he wants to sell parts of his world to other writers to write
in the same series. Yes. Across series or across stories and genres, no. That would be my
across
answer.
Stories and across genres. Yeah. So what do you think we didn't talk about that we should, involving this collaboration or collaborating in general? What should people be aware of about collaborating?
I don't know. Do you want to take this one?
I don't think I could just collaborate with anybody. And from my perspective on this, my point of view, I don't think I would be capable of writing the book. So if I hadn't have been working with my daughter, then the idea that I woke up with would never have been committed to paper.
Yeah.
It would never have been published. No. Because I wouldn't know where to start anyway. But if I did, I would have to trust very much the person that I was giving it to do the right thing with.
That's pretty cool.
So it would be a difficult process for me, I think.
Just making that different, maybe a different person, that would be hard. But that is so fantastic that under any other circumstance, this story would have just been something that you would have forgotten about over brushing your teeth. Gone.
I have done many times, to be honest. As I say, I generally wake up with something in my head, so whether it be a tune, whether it be an idea.
Yeah, unless you don't start the project, it's going to go away. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And so has been talking to both you guys. Where do you want people to go to find you on the World Wide Web?
Well,
Find out about this project, updates, stuff like that.
You can go to rachaelhardcastle.com, and that's ERACHAEL hardcastle.com. Twitter, Facebook, we're going kind of on tour with a book signing, various different locations after the book comes out, most of them with WH Smiths, and you can find details of the tour on Facebook.
Awesome. David, is there anything you want people to know about you? Website, no, Twitter, Facebook?
No, you won't find me on Twitter. You might find me on Facebook, but there won't be that much on it that's book related, in fairness.
I've seen you on Facebook.
Yeah, most of the stuff on my Facebook is Halloween. I'm a bit of a Halloween freak. But no, if anybody out there wants to buy the book, track down Rachael Hardcastle. That's where you'll find it. She's the expert. She's the talented one. She's just got a dad that wakes up with crazy dreams.